get ready to go bananas because we've seen Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I'm James, that's Nan. So last night we saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes in Australia and New Zealand. So it does follow the Planet of the Apes trilogy we got done by Matt Reeves, at least those last two movies. And it takes place generations later. So basically humans have regressed into their primitive state and apes kind of are the intelligent species now. And so we just see that evolution going on, and it does follow a young ape, part of an eagle clan, and he just goes on a journey to discover the past and the truth and all that other kind of stuff about this. You'll find out when you watch it. But Nan, you know that I was quite hostile with my opinions for this one. I mean, I know you shared the opinion, you just weren't as aggressive with me on it, but following Matt Reeves, hard thing to do. Wolf of the Planet of the Apes, into that trilogy perfectly. I thought there was no story here. So my main question here, what were your overall thoughts?
I think you were wrong.
Was I wrong?
But you were right at the same time, you know. I think the reactions oversold the movie by a lot, and which is why I will no longer buy into the hype of reactions, because there's been so many films where it's said it was amazing and it's either been dog trash, mid, or you know. So unless it's Furiosa, I hear that stuff is really good, so I'll buy into that. But yeah, I think it was a good movie. It wasn't horrible, it wasn't great like the Dawn or War. I had a discussion with Kyan about this yesterday, and we were trying to before the film, we were gauging whether it would be more towards the Rise of the Planet of the Apes or more towards Dawn. And we had in terms of quality.
In terms of quality?
Left the cinema, we both agreed that it was probably around about that, closer to Rise. I haven't decided, in my opinion, whether I think this film is better or worse than Rise, but it's somewhere in that realm. There's just a lot of stuff that could have made this film head towards Dawn, but we'll get into that later, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm quite certain on where I fit this one in amongst those other trilogy of Planet of the Apes films. So this is, for me, easily the fourth best. So it's last in terms of the other ones like Rise, Dawn, and War, all better and more coherent, and they actually have a little bit more progression. This felt more manufactured. It felt like Disney actually got its hands on Planet of the Apes, which, funnily enough, it's what happened. So it's just a little bit more safe. Feels a little bit more manufactured, but that's not to say I disliked it in any sense of the word. I thought it was a good, solid movie, but it's your standard blockbuster at the end of the day. It doesn't really, allow you to, or allow the audience to, reflect on this in terms of our own world. It doesn't allow for any thought-provoking concepts. It's really just a blockbuster at the end of the day. And I thought at least Rise and definitely Dawn and Wolf of the Planet of the Apes, they had really like philosophical meanings behind them. They had excellent character development, and I just don't think that we got that in this one, at least not as much. We'll break down kind of each aspect that we feel we're talking about just piece by piece. The acting. So these movies actually do have acting. You obviously got Freya Allan in here, but you got Kevin Durand as Proximus Caesar. I think you have a newcomer as well who's playing Noah, who's the main young ape. His name is Owen Teague. And I think he's pretty new onto the scene, but there's obviously acting behind those apes and behind the CGI.
Yeah,
what did you
Proximus
really think
Caesar
about
was probably
the performances in this?
The best. My favourite is by far Raka. Forgot his name, the orangutan. That guy's that guy's a lad.
Oh, yeah.
You'll know it when you see it.
Raka,
that guy's the absolute
Raka,
man. But I think Proximus Caesar's probably the better performance out of this film. I thought Freya Allan, she's still relatively new to this industry. I mean, the only thing that I've seen her in is the Witcher series, and she's pretty okay in that. She's nothing excellent. It's probably, I wouldn't say a breakout role, but a role where she's more in the spotlight, more mainstream. And I think she did averagely okay. She wasn't great. She was just herself in, like, her performance in The Witcher is pretty much very similar to this. where it's just not great or not good. It's just weird. I don't know if it's because of her face and her facial reactions or anything like that. But yeah, she's young, and obviously she'll work on that throughout her career, and I'm sure she'll be a competent actress in the future. Forgot Noah's actor's name. What was it again? Owen Teague. I thought it was pretty okay. I mean, obviously you're comparing him to Caesar, who was portrayed by Andy Serkis. And Andy Serkis is king of mocap. Like, that's just a fact. You can't beat that.
He is. He's the guy.
But I think he did a pretty okay job. Unfortunately, his character didn't support his performance. We'll get into that later, I'm sure. But I think I'm going to assume this is his first role, or one of his first roles. By far his first mainstream role for sure, because I haven't seen him in anything. So I think he did fine, considering the circumstances. I think this film introduced a lot of new people to the mainstream audience, and I think that's good, because obviously you're developing in Hollywood. But yeah, director probably could have worked with him a little bit more to polish up their performances a bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree, especially when you got kind of those newbies into these roles here. I'm like you, Owen Teague, I thought he did fine. I think the issues with, I guess, him, his performance, his character, it all lies in the character. I think he did a fine job. It was very convincing, and the emotional moments that the character has, I thought he did it pretty well. Freya Allan, I thought, was a big disappointment. It was tough to really gauge that character in any sense. Like, what I couldn't, get any of those emotions or what the character's motivations were. I just think, there was a massive disconnect between her character and her performance that just don't come together. Kevin Durand, Proximus Caesar, I think, obviously Raka, he's a great character, really cool. But Proximus Caesar is probably the best one for me. Just because it's a villainous role, obviously, but he adds like a little bit of spice to it. He adds a little bit of a little bit of flair to his performance, and it makes the villain just a little bit more interesting. He's not just some menace that's like quite intimidating and scary. He's got something to him. You don't quite know how he's feeling or what he's going to do. It makes him quite unpredictable. And I thought that's a really cool way to introduce his character and have this character be the villain. So I commend his performance. You did mention Owen Teague as Noah. It's more based on the character. So like going to that, what did you think about these new characters starting? I guess the next Apes movie in this franchise.
That would have been a spoiler. I think he's not as good as Caesar. Caesar was a lot more fleshed out, and I'm not talking about in Dawn and War. I'm just purely talking about in Rise. There's a lot to do with Caesar. Yeah, sure, he's first discovering this virus and how it's giving them the ability to become intellectual and speak and stuff like that. But in this one, Noah is, and it's been referred to so many times by Proximus Caesar, how he's like a very smart ape, but we don't really see his intelligence that much, apart from getting a bird and fixing a spear. That's like the most intelligent things that he has done. Like, he doesn't really deserve that praise that Proximus Caesar gives him, or like what the other characters are building him up towards. He just seems like more of a goon. So I think that's probably, I can't get into a lot without spoilers, but I think that is something that Wes Ball probably could have improved on, was mainly his script and his character writing, because you could have done a lot with generations later, is what it says at the start of the film. That's not a spoiler. Let's say generations is 200-300 years, like you'd expect a lot of apes to evolve by then. But Noah just seemed like as if he was, or all the apes rather, just seemed like something that was set 10 years after war. Their speech wasn't as fluent as it should be. I don't know how long it took humans to be fluent in English, so I can't really criticize on that. But let's just say I'm right, and we were fluent within 100 years. These intelligent apes, you'd expect them to be that fluent. And yeah, my main gripe is that how Noah was built to be the super ape, but he didn't show his intelligence or anything. Just, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. It was quite just. He felt like a normal ape. And I thought his whole journey it doesn't really start from a compelling reason. Like, it's just such an obvious reason. Caesar's, he's far more. And I'm going to be sick of using this word all the time. Like, he's really philosophical. He's got a lot of depth to him, and he finishes War for the Planet of the Apes as one of the best characters of the 21st century that we've seen on film. And if we're going to compare movies, what we get of Caesar and Rise is nothing like what we get from Noah in this. It's just, this ape going on a journey for, again, it's hard to word things without spoilers, but yeah, he's just on a journey for, I think, just a very silly reason. He doesn't really question himself, or the divide between humans and apes isn't really explored. I think that's another thing I want to get into about the plot that I really disliked. There wasn't much human versus ape conflict or ideas being thrown around in this. It was more ape on ape conflict. The apes have evolved to have different tribes, and it's just kind of apes fighting each other. I feel like it takes away a bit of what makes this franchise, I guess, so historic, is the conflict of apes versus humans. Did you like the idea to have just more apes on apes and different clans?
Can't comment
on
that
the right move?
Because I don't know. Because, yeah, I'm still on the... No, I don't... Yeah, I don't know if it was the right move, but I can understand why he did it. I mean, pretty much we got 3 movies where it was that ape versus human conflict. This is set, for example, 200 to 300 years later.
Yeah.
And apes have dominated the world. The virus has spread to humans and made us dumb, more ape-like, more caveman-like. And we have seen it in the trailers, and we see it throughout the film, where we have become speechless and stuff like that. So it sort of seemed like roles have been swapped over. So I think it was pretty cool to see the ape-on-ape sort of dynamic, different cultures in the ape society. You obviously got the Eagle Clan, and then Proximus Caesar and what he does, and just obviously seeing people from the Eagle Clan reacting to the way Proximus Caesar and his goons do, and they're all just like, what the hell is happening? Like, what? And then obviously when Noah goes on his journey and he's getting told about Caesar and how he's basically monkey Jesus. That's the way Riker put it. He's pretty much monkey Jesus. He is the god. Yeah, he is the one that started it all, which is true.
Pretty much, yeah.
And obviously some people view Caesar in one way and others in other. Like Proximus Caesar, he sees Caesar in a different way and continues his legacy in what he thinks is the right way. And obviously Riker and his orangutans do it in a different way. So I think it was pretty cool to see these different cultures, because it's pretty much what we're like, humans. We're all the same species, but we're all different colors and different races, and we all have different cultures. So why would that be any different to apes, where they've ruled pretty much the planet for 200 to 300 years?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I just don't like that. It's just apes versus apes. It kind of takes away what Planet of the Apes really is. And I think there's just far more interesting questions here. You talked about, the whole religious aspect with
I've coined that
Jesus,
term, by the
Caesar.
way. It's not actually said.
I think. I mean, yeah. I think that would have been interesting to explore a little bit further. I also like the fact that in this movie, apes kind of follow the same traps that humans did, as humans kind of got out of their cave, with their intelligence, and they started building civilization. They fell into, really bad things such as slavery. That became a thing, and we see a little bit of that with Proximus Caesar, enslaved other apes, and it's just falling into the same trap that humans did. So it'd been a really interesting parallel to see how, regardless of its ape or human evolution, still brings forth these kind of really bad things. I think that would be something far more interesting, but it just seems like this franchise is just going to be a humans and apes versing, but that's going to be interesting more than just one ape clan versus one ape clan. It's not something that really compels me in any way. One thing we heard from the reactions, because all the reactions were really great, but one thing we heard on the negative side when you had to dig deep for these ones was the pacing and the editing. Some said it was too long. Would you agree with those now?
2:25, sorry. Short mover. Yeah, get rid of it.
Too long, 1:25.
That's 2 hours, 25 minutes. Yeah, I think I did suffer. There was definitely a lot of scenes in there that could have easily been cut. There were scenes in there where it was just, why is this even here for? I think it could have been like a nice clean 2 hours to 2:10, 2:15 max, and it still would have probably achieved the same result. I mean, if it was longer, then they'll have to... No, that's spoilers, never mind.
But no, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think the first half, man, there's so many bits that you can just cut out. Or even replace with better characterization or further exploration of this world. That's when it's its most interesting. I thought there were just stuff that didn't really belong or didn't serve the characters. And when you're not pushing the narrative forward and you're not developing character, you're wasting time. And I think this movie does fall into the trap of doing bits of those here and there. So this could have been cleaned up. 2 hours and 25 minutes. I wouldn't be mad with a visual effects spectacle like this being 2 hours and 25 minutes, but you got to have that story to back it up. Speaking of VFX, we saw the reactions, man. They were praising this movie hard. VFX is a big talking point these days because a lot of these big budgeted movies have been heavily criticized for poor visual effects. This one I think clocks in, or doesn't clock in, but it has a $160 million budget. What were your thoughts on the VFX? Do the budget?
One of the
do they use the budget
said
well?
that this is the best visually looking movie since Avatar: The Way of the Water, and that is probably the weakest sort of comment. Like thinking about it after reading it and after doing our podcast, that is probably the dumbest and weakest comment ever. Because if you think about the films that released last year, the visual effects was pretty mid. So obviously this is just automatically going to get that title as the next best film since Avatar: Way of Water. It's right, it is the next best visually looking movie since Avatar: Way of Water. But in regards to whether it's better than the other series, I think it's better than Rise. I'll definitely say that. Mind you, that technology was back in like 2011. But it just seemed like as if it's just stayed the same. It didn't increase the visuals. Like I think we mentioned on a private chat that War of the Planet of the Apes had probably better visual effects than this film. And War was 7 years ago. Yeah. Crazy. 7 years ago. And this film is not even on par. It's below. So that's weird. I mean, what did Avatar: Way of Water do in like 9 years? Like it completely like redefined the visual effects of the previous film, which redefined visual effects already. And this just stayed the same. So it used its budget well for sure, but it did nothing to push the franchise and push visual effects further for the next generation.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I think the thing with the visual effects in this one, and the visual effects are great. They're really, really good. I think they're top of the line in terms of the industry standard. They are the best. Avatar, that's just a level above. But, if you think about, I guess, tiers in visual effects in terms of the franchises, Avatar stands alone at the top. There's no one competing for it. And then on the next tier, second tier, I would put these Planet of the Apes movies. They are that good. They are really good. And this one doesn't disappoint at all. I will say that Dawn and War for the Planet of the Apes look better. God. And, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was 10 years ago. I know, it's crazy, right? How time goes. But I would say for those ones, it's probably the fact where you've had better lighting, better cinematography, better shot selection that complement those visual effects a lot better than what this movie did. You have a lot of, far away shots here. You don't really get much detail in a lot of these, shots of the apes and all that stuff. So we had one moment in this movie where, one of the apes is looking through, I think, like this old telescope thingy. Close up of the eye. Really, really impressive stuff there. Yeah, that was when I was like, oh, well, this is good. So I think part of it is the fact that Wes Ball's not as, I guess, like not as competent or not as experienced when it comes to capturing that kind of atmosphere and, you know, balancing cinematography. And you can say the same with what he did on the Batman. He's really good. Matt Reeves at establishing a visual aesthetic, while Wes Ball is not. And I think that's where we're seeing the visual effects not as great for this one. But one thing that does support the great visual effects in this one, I thought that third act, and there's a lot of water in the third act, and that's brilliant. That kind of CGI, because balancing motion capture and CGI, and water, extremely difficult. Only Avatar: The Way of Water has done that. So that last act is, you know, a masterpiece when it comes to visual effects. Just the way, you know, the CGI interacts with the water, it's just so realistic. But something that this movie did a lot was, you know, on-set location shoots, people in mocaps and stuff like that. Fun little side fact about this: the physical media release for this will have the actors in motion capture suits, like version of the film, so you can watch that. I'm definitely going to watch that when it comes out, because I would love to see something like that. But yeah, anyway, so I know, yeah, but all the actors were on set, on location. What do you think about the production design? All these different kind of environments,
I think it's
exploring an
as
Earth
expected.
300 years later.
Well, you see Earth 300 years later, you know, trees and plants growing up along skyscrapers. It has that really, you know, it's not apocalyptic, but the world before we took over, really, you know, before we realized how smart we actually were and started developing the world with buildings and mics and laptops and cameras and other shit like that. So yeah, it was nice to see the planet take over, and obviously the apes. You made a comment of how like the human parallel of development is exactly the same as this in terms of slavery and stuff like that. You could say the exact same thing with production as well. You know, like their buildings were made out of, you know, not wood but like sticks, but like thick sticks and stuff like that, and like wood. That's what I look at.
Wood. Yeah. I mean, mind you, they do build around like our structures, but, like power lines and
sort
stuff
of
like that.
Primitive sort of way of building stuff like that. So I would have really liked to see them, like, you know, be full on smart as apes. You know, like not have buildings similar to us, but like more apeified. Don't know what it looks like because I'm not a production designer, but there's someone out there that knows exactly what apeified means, and they'll be like, yo, sign me up to the next one. But I thought most of the locations looked different. You know, the Eagle Clan and their thing, it was very lush and green. And then obviously Proximus Caesar was more, because they're on a beach, was more sandy, but was a bit more grainy in terms of like the colour filtering and stuff like that. That perfectly suited his world, and like, you know, the rusted ships and everything like that. So each location that Noah went into was same, but it was different and unique in its own ways. Yeah, I really like the production design here. I thought it was really creative in allowing us to really buy into this world again. You know, I think a lot of people, not just myself, were quite hesitant to follow the Planet of the Apes beyond War for the Planet of the Apes, because that trilogy is really, really great, almost perfect, and it ends the trilogy really well. But I think this opens it up in a really fresh way. I think production design's a key part of that, because it's so creative. It's something that you want to explore, and you want to see what the world's like now that apes are, you know, taken over and it's 300 years in the future. I thought they did a really creative job about that. And there is a journey happening in this movie in terms of the production design. We go through so much, and I think they just utilize things really well. I think, again, the third act, having that kind of that silo or that safe haven vault place, really, really cool. It sets up for an amazing third act. So yeah, if you do go see it, what they do with that is, I think it's just really great. It's really, really cool. One thing that surprised me was the score. I actually quite liked it. There was a few pieces in that hit me quite hard. And I really liked the War for the Planet of the Apes soundtrack, and I think Dawn was pretty good as well. Yeah, I
This
thought it was
just follows
fantastic.
right in line
Like you
with those
said,
ones.
in
What do
line
you think
with
of the score?
Matt Reeves films as well. Even at the opening score we hear is from the previous trilogy. I can't remember the original, but it sounded like as if there was a piece from the original in there, but like more modernized. I'll need to watch the original to like confirm. But it was
Right.
yeah, 60s movies.
Oh,
yeah.
the 60s
But
movies?
it was exactly what
Yeah,
it needed to be,
yeah.
and it perfectly captured what a score should be for Apes, you know, with the drums, and it's not like fast beat drums, it's like ding ding sort of drums, which was awesome. So yeah, I think the score was amazing in this, and like there was a few pieces in there where like it actually captured the emotion of the I can't get into spoilers, but the emotion of what was going on screen as well. You could just like really feel what was happening.
Yeah. Particularly the piece at the very end, the last thing, as it kind of, sets up the rest of the story that's going to follow through. Really powerful stuff there. I mean, I just don't think there's much emotion in this movie to begin with, but
100%.
if there was, the score would definitely help with it. So let's talk about the man that we've spoken about so much on our podcast, Wes Ball. He brings us all together. Hey, you've had thoughts as well. How did he pull this together? Do you think this is a worthy, addition to
I think it is
the
worthy.
Apes
Like,
franchise,
it wasn't
the
dog
modern
shit
Apes
like
franchise?
we were saying when we first heard about it.
Yeah,
I think it is worthy,
we
and
did say it was going to be awful.
It did honor the previous three films, and Caesar's legacy. We see it in all these reactions, but that it just hammers home once you go see it. There's definitely a lot of choices that he could have done to really push this franchise a lot further. He played it too safe. I don't know if it's him or Disney. If I have to bet my money on, it'll be Disney because they can't take risks for the life of them. But just simple little things like, just making the main lead an actual intellectual ape, and all the characters saying, oh, he's such a smart ape, but him just being a regular ape that can fix a stick is, you're just like, well, I don't see it. Even other little things, more towards the end and how the ending played out, it's just like, we've already seen 3 films off this. Why can't we just see, Planet of the Apes, really? But all in all, I think he did really. He had a huge task, to live up to Matt Reeves. He didn't live up to Matt Reeves, but he gave it a good shot, and it wasn't horrendous. Like it's a worthy entry into this franchise for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, again, it is good. It is a good movie, and I think he did surprise me for this. Especially, the thoughts that I had way back when it was first announced. Yeah, no, I thought he did a great job bringing everything together. A lot of decisions could have been changed. I think what works so great about those first 3 movies is that you have a main character in Caesar. He's the centerpiece, and he's such a rich character. And that's what this movie is missing. It kind of, the Rise of the Planet of the Apes, it focuses on Caesar almost entirely of the time. Caesar. Obviously, you got James Franco and stuff in there. But this movie, it tries to introduce a lot of different characters. Noah doesn't get the screen time he deserves. It doesn't flesh out his character or, again, shows why he's, this intelligent ape that Proximus Caesar seems to see in him. So yeah, I think that's going to be a detriment to it. It's just, I think what it does though, I think it sets the stage for something that can be better than what this movie was, and I think that's a good thing. Reintroducing the audiences to this Apes franchise again. He did a good job. I would love to see a more veteran director come in now and take it from here and kind of progress what Wes Ball had done here. I mean, he, again, as I said just before, he sets the stage here. So where do you think that this franchise can go? Is there much more story left to tell? Can they just keep going forever?
The 60s. Yeah, it can keep going on forever. But Kine and I actually had an interesting conversation before this, before we saw the film, and we were like, speculate on what the next film could be, because this one's called Kingdom, where it's like different colonies and stuff like that. And they were like, oh, what if the next one's called Empire of the Planet of the Apes? Where that they're starting to take over like cities and countries all as one like unit. And then Kyan actually mentioned like the final film, if this were to be a trilogy, would be called Planet of the Apes. Simple, but would be simple, and that would be like a two trilogy sort of arc from beginning to them taking over. And then Kyan mentioned, if they were to take it even further, they could just completely go back to the first film, as in the 60s film, and just have like someone from space come down and rediscover all of this again in a modern world. Because he did mention that in the first one, that how someone was sent to interstellar travel or something like that. So what we actually theorized, mainly Kyan, he was the main brains of this whole theory. So Kyan, shout out to you. That's actually a pretty interesting idea. It's probably would have been awesome to see that, just like seeing these apes take over an entire planet, and then a nice callback to the original film. A lot of people probably would have complained like, oh, it's just like the original. Well, that's the whole dumb point.
I mean, my only issue with that, and shout out to Kyan, great little theory there. My only problem with that is we don't need 6 movies to get to a Planet of the Apes. That's a snail pace for me. There has to be something a little bit more in terms of at least plot development over the entire series. Just like Empire and they take over cities. I don't like that. Like, it's been 300 years. They've barely done anything. I honestly, the human versus ape conflict is the most compelling part of the entire franchise. And I kind of want to see that conflict kind of build up into kind of a bit of an epic, final installment. And perhaps the, closing sentiment of the franchise is the harmony between humans and apes, acknowledging flaws from both sides and trying to find peace within that, because I think that just echoes Caesar and his entire messaging of apes and humans living together, apes together strong, but they don't harm humans. So if the entire legacy of the Planet of the Apes movies is going to be centered around Caesar, which it clearly is, it'd be nice to go out on what that character actually believed in. I would just find that more powerful than just, a callback to the original and, 17 other movies, slowly covering more and more of the planet. It's just, too much for me. I hope we stop at 6 though.
Probably
I think it
or
does
take a break
to these.
We'll get spin-offs,
but it is
for
Disney,
sure.
so we'll see what happens. They'll do some sort of spin-offs. Yeah.
And then we'll get a
Some
live
Disney
action
Plus
as well,
series is
where
gonna
they
come
actually
soon
use real
with
apes.
VFX.
Well, in fact, they won't even do that. They'll use like hyper-realistic animals, not people in mocap. They'll just use hyper-realistic animals to be in it. Yeah.
They're just gonna like the Lion King, bro. They already done that for Mufasa. Yeah. All right, scores. What is your score out of 10 for this one?
I will go just a 7. It was good, not great, but it was below.
Just a 7.
Dawn and thing for me. Now that we think of it, and we've discussed, I think it is a bit lower than Rise as well. Like just all the stuff you mentioned about Caesar and how it was more of a focused, tailored story, streamlined story. So, 7. I'll go with 7.
Yeah. That's fair. I'm going to go a 6.8 for me. The reason why I'm going a little bit lower than this one and why it is the lowest for me is that I wasn't moved emotionally kind of at all. As a blockbuster, I think it's spectacular. It's great popcorn fun. It's got incredible world building, all that kind of stuff, but it didn't move me emotionally. All those other 8 movies have everything that I just did as well, but they also moved me emotionally, and this one failed to do that due to, poor character development on my part, at least in my opinion. But
oh my God.
We have rambled on here for 34 minutes about Planet of the Apes. I know, I guess we had a lot to say about this one. But yeah, so if you guys are watching or listening and you've stuck around this long, thank you for listening to us ramble on about this movie. And if you are listening to the entirety of our thoughts here, then I'm guessing that you have either seen it and want to talk about it. So comment below and we can have a discussion about it, because I feel like this might be divisive. Actually, no, I feel like most people will actually kind of like it a lot or love it. I think we may have the unpopular opinion here, Nan. At least from what I'm seeing on film Twitter. So yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, comment below if you want to have a discussion about it, or if you have any questions about the movie and you haven't seen it yet. Hopefully we can persuade you to see it or not to see it. We don't really want to tell you what to see, but yeah, we can have a discussion either way. Otherwise, you guys can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Movie Gains. You can message us any suggestions for our podcast that we do. Yeah, otherwise, we are going to be doing our podcast tomorrow, and they'll be up as soon as we can. Anyway,
see ya.